Hey y'all, I just wanted to touch base real quick on an off-stream campaign that I just finished on Proving Grounds with Wood Elves as Orion. Just finished Legendary Campaign Victory, and even though I didn't live stream it, I did want to cover some of my thoughts on Wood Elves with the changes that they've made to Proving Grounds. So first, let's go ahead and go to the summary of the campaign, and we can kind of talk about exactly how we handled it. It was actually a pretty straightforward campaign, and one of the easier Wood Elf campaigns I've done. And maybe that has to do with luck and how things played out. But I think the changes probably do benefit Wood Elves a little bit, but not a huge amount. Like, I don't think their overall play style has changed very much. It initially just started with us kind of sitting in place and slowly growing, and then we eventually pushed out to Paravon to take them out because they are a natural enemy to start with. Beastmen really didn't show up until later on, so we just concentrated on knocking Paravon out. So you can see this is where he initially first expanded to. Took Quenelles from them, and then actually made peace, and then went after a massive Oracle to get another large settlement out of that. My initial strategy was pretty much to go as much ranged as I possibly could. So I was doing a lot of Glade Guard with Hagbane tips, and once we could get there, Starfire shafts to get that armor piercing. And then as the campaign progressed and we upgraded our settlement, as soon as we could get to Way Watchers, I went just complete Way Watchers. I actually did do a small front line in most of my armies of 4 Wildwood Rangers, and then the rest was Way Watchers. And that seemed to work pretty well. I didn't run into too many situations where they couldn't handle it. Probably the biggest issue you might run into is actually running out of ammo, because Wood Elves do fire fast, so they can really use up a lot of ammo. Kind of progressing through the campaign, you can see we went up and we finished off Paravon, and then we went and we took out Carrick Ziflin. And then at this point, Clan Scryer became an enemy, so we pushed down to territory they had taken from Carcassonne, and we continued to push Clan Scryer all the way down back to their home territories. And again, once we got them out of here, we actually made peace with them so that we could focus in other directions, mainly finishing off Carrick Norn, which came next. And we should see that in here shortly. And then obviously growing the Oak of Ages becomes a priority. Amber is still tough to come by, so it can be a problem to get enough of it to grow. It turns out though that I used a new strategy which I would almost never use, especially on Legendary, which was military alliances. So once we became established and we grew enough to kind of maintain our empire and not have to worry about enemies on all sides, I really concentrated on doing military alliances where I could with high amber factions to top off my amber consumption. And that really got the Oak of Ages upgraded kind of in a supercharged manner. You can see here we just finished off Skaven Blight and then Clan Scryer all together right there. We also took out Blackstone Post and Kemmler right about the same time. Although he did have a wandering army that kind of just didn't have a home for a long time, and eventually he showed up down at Myrmidons, I think, and that's where we took him out there. And then once we finished that off, we kind of started pushing in to the east a little bit more with Clan Eshin and Black Crag. And that's where we really kind of picked up the momentum heavily. Also, as we pushed back this way and started knocking those two factions off the map a little bit more, I then also took an extra army and pushed over onto Lothern and got rid of the Dark Elves over here. even managing to take Lothern, which for the Wood Elves is a full settlement, so you can actually upgrade it. And then you can see here we've started confederating after the Oak of Ages was finally upgraded to tier 3. And then very shortly you should see that we've confederated all of Athelloren. And once that happens, it's pretty much a cakewalk. At that point, my economy is running pretty well. There was a point where I was at 400,000 gold. I never really ran a huge surplus. I always ran it pretty close to the vest, and you can see right here, after the Chaos Invasion, we actually lost a couple of settlements, which knocked it down a little bit. But all in all, money really wasn't a problem. The Wood Elves get so much money from winning battles and then from sacking or raising and then resettling. It really pays to, in a lot of cases, just raise the settlement to the ground for the full cash and then seed it the next turn, because obviously most settlements you're not going to be able to upgrade anyway past that initial tier. So you can see now Athelloren is fully confederated, and at this point we've made enough military alliances that our amber consumption is not even a problem. At the end, you can see I'm still running a surplus of 17, and that's with all technologies researched, the Oak of Ages fully upgraded, every settlement in Athelloren fully upgraded, and Lothern also eventually being fully upgraded. You can see here we've started to push into Ulthuan, and it doesn't take too long to consolidate that. And then we do eventually make peace after we get the Shrine of Cain. We make peace with the Dark Elves. And Chaos Invasion is happening throughout all of this. Archaon doesn't show up until like a few turns from the end, maybe 5 or 10 turns from the actual end of the campaign. The final battle was Orion fully upgraded with a Spellsinger, 2 Branch Wraiths, and I forget what the ranged hero is called, but Glade Guardian, and then 4 Wildwood Rangers, and the rest was all Way Watchers. And the only issue I ran into in that battle, we actually lost 3 units in total, and that was on the 4th wave. The biggest issue there was just running out of ammo. By the time the 4th wave showed up, we had no ammo left, so it was mostly the heroes tanking the Chaos Spawn that were unbreakable. But even then, the Wildwood Rangers did okay, and the Way Watchers did fine in melee as well. So it wasn't an overly difficult campaign, but since I did it off stream, I did want to kind of share how the campaign went and kind of give my thoughts on what the Proving Ground changes were and how they affected the Elves, which all in all, I don't think that the changes were all that drastic for Wood Elves. It's a pretty straightforward campaign, I think. Regardless, it's probably a little bit helpful that the upkeep reduction is there, but the overall growth changes, public order changes, things like that really didn't have much of an effect at all. They played pretty similar to what they do on the standard map, aside from the fact that the reduced upkeep and supply lines make it easier towards mid and end game to be fielding full stacks of Way Watchers. So popping over to the statistics real quick, we can walk through that screen. And you can see 8 concurrent armies for what I had, and 2 of those armies, I want to say, were very lately fielded, so I didn't recruit those until quite late. From a battles perspective, we really didn't suffer any defeats at all in the open field. As you can see here, actually 13 total defeats, and all 13 of those defeats were in minor settlement battles. And obviously that's just because there's no garrisons. for any of the Wood Elf territories to fight back against. So there's not a lot you can do there. There were a couple of minor settlement victories that we came away with that we probably had no business winning, but just because Wood Elf, even with a small garrison, can effectively range leadership from things that are coming up against. So all in all, a pretty successful campaign, and I just wanted to share that with everybody and give my thoughts on what Proving Grounds look like for Wood Elves on Legendary. One quick note as well, I can go ahead and just show the army composition. So this was my typical army comp for pretty much... I experimented a little bit, but honestly, even with these armies, I mostly auto-resolved, so I didn't get a chance to use Sisters of the Thorn in combat very much. This was actually an initial army, which is why it's all still Glade Guard, because they were high-ranked. I didn't want to disband them, but as I grew, this was the typical army composition that I used. And some of these were inherited. Certainly, obviously, Durthu and the other legendary lords, or I guess they're not technically legendary, but immortal lords from the other two factions as well. But this was the standard army comp that I went with. So that's kind of what the map looked like. We actually didn't finish fully upgrading Lothar, and we didn't have time to. You can see we're on turn 165. At completion, which that's not overly long for a campaign. It's probably longer than some of the more powerful factions. We did manage to confederate the Lorelorn Forest. We never had confederated Bowmen of Orion, so they're still down here. They're friendly to us, so there will come a point where we would be able to confederate them. They just aren't quite there yet. So we could have done that as well. But all in all, fun campaign. Wood Elves are pretty straightforward, so if you like a linear campaign, then this is probably the campaign for you. And if you like to field a couple extra armies earlier that are a little bit more powerful with Way Watchers, then Proving Grounds would probably be a good idea. So anyway, those are some quick thoughts that I had on the Wood Elves Legendary on Proving Grounds. Appreciate everybody who stopped by to take a look. Leave any questions or comments you might have down below, and do hit that subscribe button for me if you don't mind, as it does help grow the channel and it doesn't cost you anything. And we'll see you for the next campaign. Thanks a lot.